everyone. Good to see y'all on the screen this evening. Appreciate you taking some time to join with us. And I see we have about 21 people on here, and I'm sure we'll have some others join us as the clock ticks away here. And really the purpose tonight, or the purpose of this of the Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, is to basically pull our committee back together again, and give you updates or maybe some of the changes since we last met. There's been really, I want to talk mainly about 4 things that changed since our last meeting and recalibrate together as a Citizens Advisory Committee. We only had, I don't remember what the total number of meetings we had scheduled, but who'd have thought we'd have 10 at the last one would have been a virtual meeting. A lot of things have happened since we started together as a team. So we have the team that's on here tonight. We have some FISD people. Amber's with us, our CFO, Eric Kreider, our Director of Operations, Dana, will be joining us. And then from PBK, Greg Prince is here. He worked with us on the bond, on the Citizens Advisory Committee. We have a new face. Melissa Turnbaugh is here. Melissa is really not new to PBK, but new to our project. And glad to have you here, Melissa, with us this evening.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then Anna Chenier and Anna Davila, both of them were part of our team as well. So they're from PBK. So if we have questions tonight, they can jump in and answer any of those questions that we might not be able to answer, and look at maybe some of the specifics. So I'm gonna jump right in with really what we're going to use tonight to look at. Will be the bond slides that we're using for presentations that we're doing right now that has some of the new information in it. It's what's up on the website right now, and it's something that you can point people to in terms of where is information located. The first thing I just want to talk about that's been a change is enrollment. So in terms of enrollment, really kind of hot off the presses right now, we had looked at enrollment, these demographics moving forward. And so the first change might be someone looking at it, or people that you might be speaking with, asking you questions about is, well, what is this? How does COVID impact our enrollment? And are these demographics still, accurate, still moving forward? And right now, where we are as a district, as we're getting ready for the 9 weeks, we were at 25% virtual enrollment. And as we start the second 9 weeks, we're going to drop to 13%. So we have a vast majority of our students returning back to us in school, in person. With that, we're actually down about 90 kids from where we were last year at this time, in terms of our overall enrollment. But with that, out of a 90 kids K through 12, 120 of those are pre-K and kindergarten students. We know that we've had 80 students who across K-12 have pulled out or withdrawn to homeschool because of COVID, and because of either the protocols or the desire to stay home, do a homeschool situation. We've had a number, I believe the number's 20, withdraw to private school. We also have 30 students who enrolled for kindergarten, who initially enrolled for kindergarten but didn't show up in person. And so we know those students are out there. The other thing that we know from working with the city, talking with the city, is that the developments are still moving forward. So Avalon, which is the development out by the new junior high and by where the new Klein might be located, the road for that's a key piece. The road for that's going to be completed by May or June of 2021, so by this spring. And that's going to really kick off the construction. They're actually going to start on 50 lots fairly soon by opening up that construction. That's a total of 259 lots. So that's still moving forward and something that these projections are based on. Friendswood Trails, again, is 130 lots. And I haven't gotten information back today on how many of those have been put down, have been started. But they're actually looking at finishing those out and looking to develop their sections 3 and 4, which would be because of the success of the initial development, which would tell you part of these demographics are based on those numbers. And then Georgetown, out on the edge of town on 528 near Alvin, D.R. Horton is looking to purchase those because Friendswood Trails has done so well, looking to purchase that area and develop those. So Sterling Creek, they're looking at their last few zones. 200 lots will develop in that sections 5, 6, and 7. Garden homes are to be starting soon. So all of that in terms of what has changed with our demographics, basically nothing has changed. The growth this year has not been there, but the developments, the homes that students will be moving into has not changed. So we're still anticipating the students showing up at some point in time as this pandemic, which is the change, moves forward. So this slide gives you an idea of the capacity changes with the projects that we have going in that our team proposed for Westwood, Bales, Winsong, and the new 900 student elementary school. So those things are not things that have changed, and wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that, because the question might be, well, are these developments slowed? Has the economy slowed anything in these areas? And as of right now, it hasn't. In fact, you talk to any real estate agent in Friendswood, and right now homes are moving very quickly. So at this point in time, we don't anticipate these demographics changing. We continue to see that growth as a possibility. So that's one thing that basically what's changed is our enrollment has changed a little bit, but the development of that really hasn't changed from those slides. The other thing that's changed has been the voting dates and locations. Tammy, if you wanna kick to those real quick. Because of COVID, we as a school board, the school board moved the election from the May, which was initially set up, into the November time period. So on March 23rd, they voted to, as you can see on the bottom of the slide, move forward with unanimous recommendation, as you're all aware. One thing that's important, I think, and we sent this out in emails, but we haven't really sat down face to face and talked about it any, was that a bond election cannot be canceled. There's no legal authority that allows a board to cancel an election. Now, you might see a district or you might see an article, you might see a district that's canceled their election. But again, I'm going to go back to, there's no legal authority, been very clear from our tax attorney, to cancel a bond election. So therefore, it was just moved into the November timeframe, and will be moving forward. So after the presentation from our legal counsel, the board obviously made a decision to do to make the move and move forward with that. So that changed voting around. So Tam, if you kick back to that final slide, so that changed all of the voting to a later time frame. So October 13th, which is just right around the corner here, a week and a few days from now, begins early voting. And the voting locations you can see on this screen where you're able to vote. One thing that's important that I want you to know, and you can see the times here, is that Friendswood ISD does not control the polling place. We just allow for the location. So polling places, in terms of their responsibility for COVID protocols, do not have to follow what Friendswood ISD's protocols are. We're going to separate out, it'll be in the boardroom, we're going to separate out our staff that's over in the annex area. Remember again that in the annex that we have as many employees that work in the annex as we do at Windsong. And I'd also add, we have 3 more employees now. We have 3 of our virtual teachers that'll take us through the end of the year, through the end of this year in terms of virtual, are also located over in that building now. So we separate them out with dividers, but if you'd see something that says Friendswood ISD is not running a COVID safe election, we don't have anything to do with that. We just open the doors up and allow those judges to run that location. It's all run by Galveston County. So those are a couple of the changes. The election time frame is November 3rd, and then you can see the early election locations from League City, Dickinson, Friendswood, and a Galveston County voter can vote, who's a resident can vote in any of those locations. The biggest change has been the tax impact, and Amber is online with us, and I'm going to have her walk you through this tax impact. And Amber, we have that full presentation, so we jumped right to this tax impact slide. If you want Tammy to jump around, just tell her where you want it. But this is the biggest piece that I want you to see as the biggest change from where we left each other the last time we were together. So Amber, if you'd take it away.
All right. Well, good evening, guys. It's been a while, and this slide was actually in CAC meeting number 1. So I just want to remind you that there's 2 components to our tax rate: the maintenance and operations and the interest and sinking. The maintenance operations is recurring expenses, salaries, supplies, utilities, transportation, kind of those day-to-day operations. Interest and sinking, or your debt service, is what we're talking about for a bond. These have to be large purchases: capital expenditures, land, large construction, big renovations, technology, new buses. So I know there's a lot of buzz right now on social media as why can't the district do with what they have, or why can't we take this money and spend it on salaries? Legally, we cannot. All right, Tammy, go to the next one, please. So just to touch on that again, that legally we cannot use those funds for day-to-day operations. We also can't exceed 50 cents per $100 valuation. So our current INS, or debt service rate, is 0.2759. And that pays for $85.2 million of current existing debt. So if we do nothing to our debt schedule and we do not have a successful bond election, the $85.2 million in principal that we owe will be fully paid out in 2037. Tammy, can you go to the tax rate history, just like slide 6? All right, so I just want to bring this one back to your attention as well to show that we're very stable in our tax rate year over year. And to remind you that in 2019, we did see a 10.76 decrease in our tax rate, and a 10.76 cents, I should say, not percentage. But that was due to House Bill 3. So that was mandated legislation that was passed that required us to reduce our tax rate. Our debt service did go up 2 cents that year, but it was also because of a tax rate swap that had happened the year before. So for 2020, the Board of Trustees approved that in late August, and we were able to keep our tax rate constant at $1.2594. Again, this did have some mandated tax rate compression in the maintenance and operations, but we were able to add additional funding to our INS to pay off our 2012 series early. So I feel like we're being very prudent with our dollars and our projections to keep the money in the taxpayers' pockets when it's available. All right, so how much is this going to cost us? That's the $128 million question. So when we initially met, we were looking at an 18-cent bond. And so the great news is it's only 10 cents now. And that's mainly due to a new tax year. So all of the old projections were based on 2019 property values. And now we have new values for 2020. Our values as a district increased 9.4%. I'm sure you've all seen your rates go, your property value go up, and then you will soon be seeing your tax bills. So when you change the factors within the calculations, we were able to decrease from 18 cents to 10 cents. I also want to point out that the 10 cents I feel is a very conservative projection because our financial advisors are using a 4% property value growth, but the 8-year average property value growth for the district is 6.5%. Additionally, they are calculating that the bonds would be issued at 3.5% interest. That would be the amount of interest that the district would have to pay back. But school district debt is currently issuing at 2.8%. And lastly, the 10-cent increase would likely not occur over 1 year. It would be phased in over 2 or 3 year period. So this would mean that you would not see a huge increase all in 1 year. We could phase it in at 5 cents and 5 cents or 0.33 cents over 3 years. Additionally, the maintenance and operations rate is projected to decrease an additional 2 cents for tax year 2021. But that also assumes that no changes are made to current legislation and that we have a 5% property value growth. If you look at 10 cents per $100 valuation and look at our average taxable value of a home of $349,000, it is $29 a month of increased taxes to fund this entire bond. I also want to mention that even adding the 10 cents, the tax rate is still below a 13-year average. It's slightly below, about a penny, but it's still below where we've been over 13 years. This slide holds true. So if you're a homeowner of 65 and above, and you have a current exemption, your ceiling will not increase if this bond is approved. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we do anticipate 2-cent drop on the maintenance and operations side of the tax component rate. If this 10 cents was added on all at once next year, we would be looking at a projected tax rate of $1.3387. So while yes, we must say that this is a 10-cent bond, because in reality it is, we are not looking at a complete 10-cent increase in the tax rate for next year using the current projections for maintenance and operations.
If you have questions, please, went through that pretty fast, and we're gonna end with some, what we've seen is some frequently asked questions at the end of this, and put out some of those that we know, but feel free to in the chat or also just unmute yourself and ask anything you want to about the tax rate, any of the construction, any of those pieces. You know, because we've passed the bond, this isn't a time for the district folks who are on here to advocate for this bond in any way. It's just to get the facts to you so that you have those, anything that's been updated since the time we last sat together that hasn't been sent to you as a citizens advisory committee. So, you know, that's important. One thing we want to do too is just breeze over the projects themselves. And so Tammy, if you'd go back to the project and go through these. And again, we have our friends from PBK here with us to be able to jump in about what those projects were. But just a reminder, what we proposed together as a team was an addition to Westwood, which was a 4-classroom addition. And, you know, one of the constant questions is, well, that seems like a lot of money for construction. And when you put a price on a bond, and when you drive by one of the signs out on the road next to Westwood, you'll see an overall number. but it involves a whole lot more than just the construction cost, the square footage. So if someone's taking the square footage and saying, I could build that for a whole lot less, there's a lot of factors involved. And I'll use Westwood and Windsong as an example. Westwood has parking in it. Drive by Westwood tomorrow morning as school arrives, and look and see if we'd had additional parking, what we might be able to do to have cars come off of the road. It has other pieces in it. It outfits that addition. It provides for furniture, fixtures, equipment, technology, turnkey for that space. It includes the fees needed to be able to pay the professionals who are going to put that together and join it onto the building. It includes storage spaces. It includes restrooms, all the fixtures, the pieces that go together with that. So, when you look at a price, it isn't just for the square footage for that. Windsong the same way. Windsong is a much larger parking area. Windsong also, every time when we put concrete down, we got to have drainage areas. We got to have places for the water to go. And so part of that is building retention to be able to move that water. And these spaces allow us to move forward with a 10-year look at our enrollment. So we haven't passed a bond for 13 years, and this would allow us the growth needed for that 10 years. Any one of our friends from PBK, you want to jump in there and say anything just about the costs of, especially before we get to Klein, the costs of construction?
Yeah, and thank you, Greg Prince of PBK. Thank you for having us. Good to see all you guys. It's been a long time. You really kind of said it very well, Thad, as far as the understanding what those costs are, especially when you see a sign out front that says, $3 million for a Westwood addition, or a $44 million for a Klein Elementary School. And I'll take Klein just as an example. I think there's been a lot of questions specific to Klein in addition to others, but like you mentioned, that's a project cost that includes all of the soft costs, including everything the district has to do to prepare for that, all of the front end work for surveys and soils reports and fees associated with the project. So when you boil it down to construction cost, say for Klein, for example, now Klein is a little bit different because that cost does include the abatement and the demolition of the existing Klein. Although I know the future of that existing Klein would still be up in the air potentially. But if you take all of that out and you're looking at just pure construction cost, the cost per square foot for Klein is somewhere in the range of $245 a square foot. Just for some frame of reference, we have a database that we keep for all projects in the state of Texas. And also we narrow that down to the Gulf Coast region. We're looking at other school districts around the greater Houston area. We've got a list right now in front of us that it's got 8 elementary schools that have been built and bid and built in the last 18 months or so. And those costs range anywhere from 240 a square foot all the way up to 290 a square foot. So while the cost included in the bond right now does include inflation, which we cannot predict, right now the base cost per square foot is in line with the averages we're seeing in the region. So I hope that helps explain. I think a lot of the people that have been fielding those questions have had similar responses. So hopefully that helps everybody understand that.
Great. And then Greg, you want to just remind us again too about the choice was made to build a new Klein and to not put money into remodeling the old Klein. You want to talk about the factor that we looked at together again for why we made that, why that choice was made?
Well, there's a couple things that go into that. One of the main reasons was, that obviously the age of the school, the cost for the upgrading of the school, and the ability to bring it up to current codes obviously would be almost to a point where you're going over the scale to which the amount of money you would want to invest in renovating an existing Klein to bring it up to code. I don't know if the CAC remembers the facility cost index, and something that we use in general that we recommend for all of our school districts to use, that once you get beyond a certain point, it's I think 60% of the cost to build a new school, then you're much more beneficial to go ahead and rebuild. And Klein, when the research was done, was well above that. So that, along with, of course, the projected enrollments for Klein, but those are some of the main reasons.
It was actually right around 69% the facilities cost index. So
there you go.
You know, that and the location of where it is in comparison to where our growth is was one of the major factors for moving that. All right, Tammy, if you click to the next one. Again, this is another big question is, well, what are you going to do with Klein? And why do you have 2 vacant facilities? Why? That's not very efficient. A couple things, and just a reminder for us, one of the choices was to build a new Klein and to not build another school with another principal, assistant principal, nurse, money for electricity, for insurance, those things. Build a new one and be able to house within those 4 elementaries versus 5. If the bond were to pass, the first thing that we would be doing would be putting together an action team, the board, and looking at what the land values would be, what the options would be to retain would we need the property for future expansion? We'd be looking at, possibly another demographic report. Would there be a place that would be more useful for a property? There's not a whole lot of property left, but there are some maybe way in the south zone. If we just demoed Klein and we could sell it, provide a development that could generate tax revenue for both the city and the school district, which could actually then in turn help lower, be part of possibly lowering bond costs over time. We could sell the building and property as it is, or if things pop up, to be able to utilize it for future educational support function needs. And again, just a reminder that the annex, like I said earlier, has as many people in it as Windsong does right now. So I think that's an important message as we go out and share that with others. The high school, we've all been through there and toured that facility. So this information isn't anything new. There hasn't been any changes on the auditorium, the need for space, the competition gym. Again, we're seeing the need for that 3rd gym again as we experience even where we are right now in COVID, having to move people into open locations. Other school districts around us have larger gyms in areas where we can distance folks out, and we don't have the opportunity to do that. Again, just a reminder that when we have 2 seasons going on at the same time, volleyball, well, we have volleyball and basketball going on year round, that they aren't able to use the gyms at the same time. So this would add that third gym to that place. The auditorium, again, we've been through this. I don't know that there's anything really updated on here, other than we've had to spend, recently spend additional monies on a lighting project that went out on us. So we continue to be challenged by the needs at the auditorium. We know we've talked about the domino effect of all the projects working their way down through, each of them depending on each other. When we get to the time frames, PBK is going to talk about the update on the time frames on what that might look like, what that might change, which changed from when we first spoke. This again is just a diagram of where these items will be located. We've gone through this. I know there's been some questions about, well, why can't we see any drawings? We want to see drawings of what the auditorium and what everything's going to look like before we vote. And that's not the process. The process is to approve the square footage or the needs, and then to create the project with the teams on the campuses and the input from the communities that are going to be served by those areas. And then district-wide projects, again, safety and security, and what those might look like. Again, fencing, security film, surveillance cameras, Visual lockdown systems in all areas are going to be something that we need. Our PA systems are not working properly, so these would bring those all up to modern standards. Friendswood Junior High right now is the only location we have that our receptionist isn't behind glass, and so we would be able to do that and add additional film, bullet resistant film to all those areas. So again, that's just a reminder of those key projects. And then technology, I think that's the next piece, is really infrastructure. And man, do we know how important the technology infrastructure is now. And our technology team has done a great job of having the infrastructure in place for us to be able to Zoom across every campus in the district. I've done it the first day of school. We got the opportunity to do that and see how that worked. And so this would again be upgrading switches, fiber, virtual machines, storage, environmental monitoring updates, which would keep things cooled off and working properly, phone system upgrades, and upgrading our NOC, our main network operations center. So a lot of important things that are on their own opportunity to vote for them, their own proposition. And then again, the priority maintenance projects, 14 million in that, really, really important for us in terms of the costs of what we can put in each year versus the needs for all of these areas. And then land purchases. There's some questions about why would we reimburse for the land? The land costs, which came over time, come out of our general fund or our reserves. And maintenance, we in looking at the overall budget, the maintenance and operations budget, or the maintenance budget basically is 1% of our entire budget when you look at everything. And so when you look at that number, being able to put in if we had an HVAC system go down, that's $100,000 expenditure. Right now, the high school roof is out of warranty. That's a $3 to $5 million repair, or $3 to $5 million construction project. And so with just 1% basically set aside to be able to keep up the district, there's no way to have those funds to be able to do the projects that we've had engineers come and look at across the entire district and be able to prepare for school to go on, and for us to be able to educate our students in a cool, warm, safe environment, whatever the weather might be, on top of with a dry roof over their heads, a building envelope that's safe. And so we look at, for example, why refund that money? Well, I'll give you I'm watching the Weather Channel right now on our third hurricane that's headed our way this year. When our hurricane, our insurance, which we do have insurance, by the way, for all of our facilities, is a 3% deductible for a value not of our total facilities, but a value that we're allowed to get up to. And if we had a total, everything was taken out, our deductible alone would be $7 million. So to be able to have that set aside. COVID, we didn't plan on spending $200 a year. When we started this process, we didn't plan on spending $200,000 on COVID PPE gear. We didn't plan on hiring 18 employees to be able to keep COVID protocols going. So those are things that when we pay back that general fund money, that's where it goes back to be able to fund those expenditures that we don't expect. We have 90 days of operating in there. which is something that the state asks us to have a cushion in. You could compare our fund balance to a lot of school districts' fund balances and see that we're much more conservative than a lot of people around us. So that kind of gives you an idea of why those. And again, here's our entire bond package. And again, would just point to the costs of those and what's all involved in each one of those costs. I think that one of the things that we wanted to be able to talk about was the updated schedule of construction. So Greg, or one of your team, if you could talk about how this moving back has changed. When would we be able to step into any of these facilities with the change in dates?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So, I mean, obviously we did lose, some months in the bond schedule. So if you look at it just on a straight calendar, obviously there's a 6-month slide in the vote. So for a potential bond that does pass, some of those schedules could just slide in easily 6 months, but there's also things we need to look at as far as, especially with new projects such as Klein, that you would want to try to avoid a mid-year opening. You want to make sure it opens at the start of a new school year. So we took that all into account. And right now, I can just tell you, just from a quick general standpoint, we're looking at Klein. If you have a successful bond in November, we would propose having that designed and bid out by early February 22, and construction would be completed right before the end of the school year in 23, with an opening of August of 23. So right now, that's just obviously an anticipated schedule based on a successful November bond. Similar opening date, much shorter construction period would be for Bales Intermediate, Westwood Elementary, and Winsong Intermediate. Right now, those are small additions to those three. We would propose again bidding those out at the end of 22, and construction will be complete in the summer of 23, again with an opening of August 23. And right now, Friendswood High School. So this is going to be obviously a much more difficult task to take on, just because of the phasing of the project, because there's so many multiple things that need to be done before another step can be taken in that school. So you're looking probably at a minimum of 3 phases for this construction. Right now, we're looking at that project. We're recommending that we possibly get that bid out and construction started in spring of 22, with an ultimate completion of August of 24. So it would complete prior to that, but it would be an opening of August of 2024 for Friendswood High School.
And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but in our discussions, one of the first pieces would be the auditorium, and we'd be shooting for it to get finished December of 2022. Is that correct?
So yeah, I think in our first discussions, we did talk about, obviously it's going to be phased. And I think you had mentioned, Thad, that the PAC would be one of the first things you want to get completed. We would propose, obviously, the site work would start first, detention, tennis courts, and then the additions, the gym addition, the PAC. Now, if we got the PAC started in early 22, we could get it complete potentially by December 22. I will say that that's an aggressive schedule, but I think right now, based on the needs, I think that's the first thing we want to get opened up. So yes, we could potentially look at an end of 22 opening for just the PAC.
So we could be looking at, because we are aggressive in Friendswood,
Yes,
we could be looking at a musical in that auditorium in 2023 spring, correct?
That would be our goal, yes.
Okay.
For your spring season.
Spring season musical in there. And Amber, I want you to expand a little bit more on Nikki's question about the maintenance and talk about the discretionary side of that budget, what really they have discretionary to even use.
All right, so as Thad mentioned, the maintenance budget makes up their discretionary, what we would call discretionary spending, is roughly 1% of our total budget. I'd like to use the word discretionary pretty loosely, because when you come to maintenance, nothing of it's discretionary. Discretionary to me at home is the fluff, the extra, you're free spending money. And that's not what this is. That is what they have to use if a chiller goes down, if a roof repair needs to happen, if the plumbing gets backed up, if a pipe busts. I mean, any of these things that can happen day to day, they roughly make that happen on $656,000. So again, that is why we would need to reimburse ourselves with some of these land purchases and other items, because we're not allowed to have a ton of money in a savings account, if you will, like you would in a personal budget, yet we have to have set asides for the unknowns that may occur.
Any questions just about the projects themselves, the time frame? You can always remember, when is it going to be built? Michael Jordan's number is 23. That's when it's going to be built, is 23. And except for that auditorium, we're going to have it done in 2022 for that musical in 2023. Greg has promised it every meeting that we've had. So we'll be in there.
Never happened.
Any questions about any of that or anything else? Again, put them in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself, be happy to do that. If answer any questions. We want to hit just a few frequently asked questions that we've seen, and maybe you've seen these as well, just to give you the facts on being able to answer or step in there and correct somebody. So one we always say that we've heard is, well, what factors are in place so that this 10-cent tax increase doesn't go any higher? How can you say that it's going to be this 10-cent tax increase doesn't go any higher? Amber, can you answer that again for us? You kind of hit it already, but what tells me that I'm not going to be paying more than 10 cents as I go through the next few years?
So as our financial advisors go through all the scenarios, they use conservative approach. And so they're using a 4% property value growth. But if we look historically, an average of over 8 years, we've experienced 6.5% growth. So even in a year of what we would call maybe lower growth, the 4% is very conservative. Additionally, this also assumes that the bonds would be issued at a 3.5% interest rate. So that would be the interest rate that we would have to pay back on top of the principal. Current market conditions are allowing for school district bonds to be issued at 2.8%. So we have quite a bit of wiggle room if market conditions change between now and the times that the bonds are issued. And hopefully the interest rates would not increase over 3.5%. Lastly, I want to point out that school district bonds are backed by the permanent school fund, and this makes school district bonds very stable, and people like to invest in them. They're not a risky bond. Again, I'm not advocating for it. That is just how school district bonds are issued within the state of Texas. So that's how we can look at a 3.5% interest rate as a conservative point. The interest rates aren't as volatile for school districts as they are for more risky investments.
And Amber, so, and also correct me if I'm wrong, that 4% growth, they're only projecting for 3 years and then 0% for the rest of the life of the bond, correct?
That is correct. So they assume a 4% growth for those 3 years, and then they hold property values constant for the next 30 years. Well, actually 27 years, because the bonds would be issued for 30 years.
And when's the last time we did not grow by any percentage point of?
Oh, it's been, I don't have that right off the top of my head, but it's been several years. And, but again, this year we had over 9% growth. And so it's what we've looked at is kind of, if you take the high and the low off, we're still at 6.5%. So it seems to be very cyclical. So the years that maybe we don't hit that mark, the next year or the next few years, we're above that.
So you're saying that even during Harvey, we grew our property values?
We did. Mm-hmm. Yes, the years of low growth were pre-Harvey.
And then why did the tax rate, so we were talking about 18 cents and we have taxpayers asking, well, why did it drop from 18 to 10 cents? Why all of a sudden this 8 cent drop?
Yes, so the initial bond was based on 2019 property values and tax rates. So every piece of the component has changed with the postponement of the election till November. So our financial advisors used our current 2020 property values and the current 2020 tax rate, which reduced the bond projection from 18 cents to 10 cents.
So Amber, the other question is, we all know we love our teachers in Friendswood ISD. They are the backbone of what happens here. And we're raising all these millions of dollars to build buildings. Why can't we pay these teachers more with this money and use it on our teachers instead of on these buildings?
Yes, so legally, debt service or bonds issued cannot be used to pay for salaries or other recurring expenses. And that's why we have to ask for bond money. Our payroll is 85% of our operating budget. And so while that is in our forefront and we would love to pay more, we can't go to the taxpayers and ask for that money because legally we're restricted and we cannot do that.
What would happen to you, Amber, if we took money out of there and paid teachers with it?
Well, I'm not very good at wearing orange or stripes. It's like black and white stripes. So I likely would be in jail. But yes, not only would it would be very bad, it is illegal and it would blast us all over every kind of media and we would be in very large trouble.
So Amber, could we use it for technology? Could we use it for all these COVID items that we needed? Could we use it for any of that?
For the COVID PPE items?
Yes.
No, those are recurring expenditures, even though they're infrequent and this has happened one time, that would be considered a supply. So all of that is on the district's dime.
Good. We've kind of hit all these other questions. I got one more question, and Eric, this one's for you. So Westwood's older than Klein. Westwood's actually as old as I am. It was built in 1968, the original part. I know I look a lot younger than that, but that's true. So why in the world would we propose a new Klein? What's been done at Westwood over these years to improve it? Why not rebuild it instead?
So obviously the facility itself has the hallways that are needed for a school, but we have replaced all new classroom doors. We put new doors in the classroom. All this work has happened in the past couple of years. All new casework in all the classrooms. So every classroom got new casework in it. We've changed out all the existing light fixtures with LED in the hallways. We added new carpet in areas. We changed out the entire ceiling grid to the school. So all the ceiling grid that you see in there is brand new. The cafeteria serving line was updated. We did bathroom renovations and also have done a bunch of stuff outside to include the outdoor learning center that's being enjoyed by all right now, especially with some of the stuff that we got going on. So we've done quite a bit of work in that school to bring it up to, I mean, you would never know by walking into that school as old as it is by just looking at the fixtures and the doors and casework and everything that we've done to that building.
So we've also added a new entrance to that and added an area in the back for more classrooms. But we do have 2 portables now to be able to handle the amount of students that we have at Westwood this year. So that's one piece that we're dealing with right now at Westwood. A question asked a lot is, why did the property get purchased before the bond election? So part of the reason why the property got purchased before the bond election was Friendswood ISD had a long-range plan and knew that land was at a premium around the school district, around the facility itself at Friendswood. And so as those properties came up for sale, the district purchased them and then rented them back for market value to continue to generate the revenue to be able to pay for, to add back to the monies. And almost all of the lots were purchased up. And then right in the same year that the Citizens Advisory Committee met, There were 3 lots that we approached the owners about their interest in selling, and they were interested, and we bought those again at market value and allowed them to stay there and rent those back. We have to have space for retention when areas are the parking area in the front, tennis courts are added. And so that allows us additional field space that's important, and also areas for retention for water to be placed as we move forward. So really, it was a forward-looking by the boards before me, and then in our time together, preparing for what the future is, whether it's this bond or the next one. Sure, we can add that to the frequently asked question page. Help me remember that, Amber and Eric, Dana, to put that on there. What other questions? Any other questions?
Dad, I see that Molly's asked a question that says, when the bond passes, how long until the bonds are issued, is one question that she's been asked a lot.
Okay.
So as soon as the bond is, if it's successful, then we meet with our financial advisors, bond counsels, and underwriters, and we get the ball rolling quickly. So sometimes that can take a few months just to get the right check marks and everything in place and the correct orders placed. But within roughly 3 to 6 months, if the market conditions are correct and it's time to hit go, then we would move forward with the purchases. So it'll be rather quickly. But again, we're looking at 2020 tax values right now. Those tax bills are due no later than January 31st. So we could potentially issue bonds before the 2021 tax rate. So it wouldn't be a year of waiting.
Also, those bonds have to, especially on the major projects, they have to be spent on that. It can't be passed and then we build a new section for Friendswood High School instead of a Klein. So it's a promise to our voters on what we're going to be using those on. Any other questions or needs from this group? Well, thanks for spending an hour together again. And look forward to getting out to vote. Hope you take that opportunity. Megan, are you 18?
No, I'm still 16.
Oh my goodness, Megan, you're too young.
Early voting does start on my birthday though, so it's like the best birthday present I can get.
We'll remember that. We're going to honor Megan. Megan's won another award. She's been at our board meetings more than any student, I think, in my time, and for one thing, whether you're presenting or winning. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just again, just encourage people to vote. Get out there, and again, you have more information than a lot of people. We're trying to get that information out, and just continue to share the facts about what we've put together as a team, as a community, and we're just grateful for your time tonight and all your other hours that you've put on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Again, if you have any questions, people hit you with questions that can't be answered on the website, please send those, email those to me, to Eric or to Amber, and we'll be happy to share with you what we know and get that answer to you. So hopefully have a great evening. Get back to Monday Night Football. Starts here in just a little bit so you can catch the game. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.